I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please take a moment to observe a moment of silence. Roll call. I'm going to begin with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stephen.
Here.
Commissioner Culberson.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
And I am here. I do not believe we have anyone signed up for agenda item public comments, so we will move on to administrative business. Any administrative business, Mr. Lothry, that you'd like to share with us?
Commissioners, just I sent an email out late yesterday afternoon about the announcement that we did receive cost share funds on 235th Street. So just wanted to say that was good news, and Bill and his staff continue to do a good job of getting us grants, and that helps us with the overhead on some of these road improvements.
Mr. Stephen, did you have something?
I do. I just wanted to have a little chat about George Road. Just show all the commissioners, this is a petition from 28 residents of George Road asking, and I've visited virtually every house on George Road and talked to the residents, requesting that the road be closed for a temporary basis at K16 until such time as the Public Works Director, the Sheriff, and the county can establish what an appropriate speed limit would be and what the appropriate enforcement could be on that road. We have gas trucks traveling down the road. We have semis traveling down the road. The safety of that road is in question. And I myself, when I was traveling and talking to folks, I 3 times pulling out of driveways was almost hit by a car. And I can tell you it's not the safest situation, and I think we need to at least take a pause here, talk about what needs to be done for safety's sake on that road, and I think the entire issue here is not convenience, the issue is safety on the road. And the suggestion by the residents is close it at the K16 entrance for a 30-day hiatus till we get established what we can do. And I will remind people that the Helen's Hilltop, all 5 commissioners signed this document, the letter, and we let KDOT know that our intention was that the road would be closed to through traffic. And that was the intention at the beginning, and it's signed by all the commissioners and approved at the county commission meeting. I don't believe the board order was ever actually brought to us on that.
I believe it got changed because they agreed to pay dust control. And they agreed to pay the dust control because it was going to be an unofficial detour, and that by accepting the dust control, we were accepting that there was going to be an increased amount of traffic.
Well, that certainly is not the understanding of the residents, and that certainly at no time did I have an understanding of that. And at the meeting at Helen's Hilltop, no one was of the view that windy, dangerous road could handle anywhere close to 3,000 cars a day. And I don't know if we have an actual number of what the traffic count was prior.
There's 3,000 cars a day using.
Well, the reason I say
have we
that,
got a traffic count?
The traveling public safety is our primary concern. We are realistic that the great deal of the 3,500 vehicles per day. That was what was on this letter.
3,500 would be KDOT's road.
That's exactly right. But what's happening is that is becoming KDOT's road because that's not the intention of the commission was not to make that a primary detour. And that document that you're referring to, we never, the language does not say primary detour.
It's unofficial detour.
Unofficial would, in my view, be for local traffic only.
That's right.
Local traffic is the residents there,
No,
not
local is the residents of the county.
I'm.
My recollection, we were going to put barricades off to the side that said local traffic only, not the through traffic. And then KDOT came back with, we'll pay for dust control. After we asked KDOT to pay for dust control because there was going to be an increased amount of traffic.
At the meeting at Helen's Hilltop, it requested that the barricades be set up in a staggered manner, so primarily cars would have to drive around. That was not how the signage was ever put up. And then it was also stated that that would not be a primary way, that we were not wanting all the traffic from the highway to be going down that road. It's very dangerous. All I'm asking for is the commission to consider the safety aspect of this for a temporary basis, and we must make a decision here because there will be an accident, and this is very dangerous.
There was an accident. That's why they're fixing the intersection.
That's exactly right, but let's not create another dangerous situation on that road.
Okay, well, the commissioners did not hold a meeting at the bar. You had a meeting at the bar.
I did not have a meeting at the bar.
So it's not the commission that
No.
made any decision at the bar.
I'm sorry, the meeting at the bar was sponsored by KDOT. The meeting was not sponsored by me.
You need to be talking to KDOT, not the County Commission.
Well, the issue of safety has come before the county commissioners, and that's what we need to talk about. And I'm telling you, there's going to be an accident on that road.
And there probably will be.
So let's prevent that. Let's take the safe course. I've worked for the railroad for 28 years. And I'll tell you what, there was a little girl at Hardin, Missouri killed because we didn't put up a chain link fence. The whole thing to be discussed is safety. It's not about the convenience. If you have to drive 20 minutes around, if we can provide for safety, all I'm saying, let's find a way to take a pause here and make it safer.
So you're saying all the employees that work at Peruvian Connection, largest employer but outside the school district, has to go to McLeod to come back, or Oskaloosa to go to work?
I'm saying go to Dempsey and come down 207th. It's all paid.
Okay, so now you're a locomotive engineer, not a traffic engineer. You're telling everybody to start using another detour.
I am saying that road is not safe. What we have right now is not safe. And I'm commissioners, I'm telling you there's going to be an accident there. I drove to every residence. I talked to the folks on the road. I have not one resident does not want that road closed. I have a petition here from the residents, and I'm asking you to consider the safety issue.
What about the dust control? Who pays for that? Because if we close the road, KDOT's not going to reimburse us for dust control.
We'll talk about that after we talk about safety.
We've got a lot of roads in the county. It's got a lot of traffic on it.
I'm curious.
And they're gravel.
But for this project, but for this project, there wouldn't be this type of traffic on George Road.
My understanding is that there are posted speed limits on George Road that are 30 miles per hour. Is that correct?
I believe there's one going both,
but on
one east and one west, correct?
That's fine because there's no crossroads in
right.
No, I'm just saying that is correct.
That is posted.
Okay, so if people are not observing the speed limit, is that not an enforcement issue? It's also enforcement.
It is. It also involves that.
I think that one of the first things to do is to ask for enforcement of the speed limit on that road for certain. That's just as a...
And maybe the county administrator could kind of detail what's gone on as far as enforcement the last few days.
Commissioners, I think really probably the best person to address this would be Bill Knoll. He's been dealing with this with his staff. I can give you some of the background on what's happened, but I think he can give you the details on what is actually occurring.
All right, Commissioners, I will try to summarize here in a short period the history that I have of this roadway. So at some point in the past, the Board of County Commissioners voted to acknowledge a consensus to ask KDOT to request some additional signage to be placed for safety aspects on George Road. That motion was to be then followed by a board action. The board action that came back to the Board of County Commissioners was a KDOT agreement that I have here before me that states that the parties acknowledge that in lieu of the state dewar, the state route as applicable, state route traffic will use multiple routes on the local project administrator road system, including but not limited to George Road, Hatchell Road, 251st Street, Parallel Road, with the largest impact being on George Road, the unofficial detour route. The local project administrator desires to provide and maintain standard local route conditions on unofficial detour routes. Under the terms and conditions of the agreement, it states that the Board of County Commissioners, the basis of compensation, the route selected as detours will experience increased vehicular traffic as a result of the project. Compensation is based on the reasonable cost associated with increased vehicular traffic or reasonable cost for additional maintenance or other repair actions to return the official detour routes to standard local route conditions as determined by the Secretary. This agreement was then signed and approved by the Board of County Commissioners. That is the direction that I am currently operating under. The Kansas Department of Transportation, under their sign plan for the project to George Road, the project there at Stranger Road in K16, their signage plan included road closed to through traffic signs. Those are designated as R11-4 signs. After the situation that has occurred in the past week where the Sheriff's Department started to enforce those signs and asked for people's IDs and where the location of their destination of travel was and pulling over people, that matter was then put before the Chief Counsel of the Kansas Department of Transportation. The Kansas Department of Transportation, his ruling on the matter was then relayed to us by the Metro engineer, Ryan Barrett. Ryan Barrett states that the signs are not in compliance per guidance in the MUTCD federal guidelines. Guidance in the MUTCD states that road closed to through traffic, R11-4 signs, should be used where through traffic is not permitted or for a closure some distance beyond the sign, but where the highway is open for local traffic up to the point of closure. Since there is no work on George Road as a part of the project that would precipitate a road closure, the sign should be removed. So therefore, as of yesterday, those signs that said road closed to through traffic and the message board on at Dempsey was removed. Before you here today, it would be the decision of the Board of County Commissioners to direct staff to take some sort of action. We are not permitted to put signs within KDOT right away. The signs that still include a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign and no commercial traffic signs on either end. In order for those no commercial traffic signs to be in compliance with current county resolution, an additional signage would need to be added to those that says per resolution 2009-50. That would be what the Board of County Commissioners at that time took action on to be able to allow the road department to place an additional placard to the KDOT signs as part of the project. We have requested that KDOT allow us to put those signs below their signs on the signpost in order for that sign to remain. If KDOT does not allow us to put that 2009-50 resolution sign underneath that sign, my assumption is that they will say that that sign is not enforceable because our resolution clearly states that that additional information needs to be stated with that sign. So today before you, in order to be in guidance with the MUTC, according to the Chief Counselor at KDOT, it would be your decision whether or not to close that road. It would be my interpretation here today that if we do close that road for a period of time, we would violate the terms of that agreement. County Councilor David Van Paris can maybe speak more to that, but it is unlikely that KDOT will reimburse us the $20,000 that we have ordered for dust control that was placed before the project for that roadway. The issue at hand is that there are 3,540 vehicles, according to KDOT's 2021 traffic counts, that take K16 highway. So that number of the 3,500 was fairly accurate, that took it on a daily basis. Some of that traffic would then divert down Wellman Road south through Jefferson County to US 24. The posted detour route is US 59 to US 24 to Lawrence, up K32 and back to Tonganoxie. That is an extended detour route. Detour signs are not permitted, from what I have been informed over the past more than a decade. as a public works director from a state route to a local road system. The local road system, as far as Dempsey would go, like if we were to post a detour, that is not a designed roadway at the same capacity level as the state route. That's why they post detours along state routes. They're, according to KDOT, information that they have provided, that creates a liability because you are directing traffic onto an inferior roadway of the roadway of choice. That's why their routes and their detours are always on other state routes. So, with that information, I think that the project was being done to correct a safety issue. Whenever we close a highway, obviously, that traffic still has to get to the Kansas City metropolitan area and points east of the roadway. I know Jamie Miller is here today. He has sat out of some training that he was attending in order to be here. He has the response times that would be affected for the ambulance department EMS2 that he can discuss down to the minute of how much longer the response times would be for a road closure over the next 30 days to areas north and west of George Road. If they were to take 207th Street around, that does delay response times. So there are impacts to safety no matter whether or not we leave this road open. This road was dust controlled, and so if we don't put some of this traffic on this road, we'll be putting it on other roads. Some of those roads are going to be gravel roads that do not have dust control on them currently and are not part of this agreement with KDOT. That said, obviously, as staff, we will take the direction of the Board of County Commissioners and the direction of our county council and act appropriately after this meeting.
Go ahead.
This is probably for Misty or David. On a county resolution, who can enforce that? Can law enforcement write a ticket on a county resolution, or is that going to have to be our codes enforcement officer?
The county resolution, Commissioner, first of all, a county resolution can set the speed limits on roads, which can be enforced through the issuance of a uniform traffic citation, which would be by the sheriff's office.
But that's followed up with a speed limit sign. But you're talking just a county resolution that we...
The county resolution regarding commercial vehicles can be enforced as a Class C or Class U undefined misdemeanor, and a uniform traffic citation can be issued by the sheriff's office with respect to that matter and citing the county resolution. So, yes, there are enforcement mechanisms that are available.
Okay. That's all I had.
Did you get a traffic count prior to this project for George Road? Were you able to get that?
Yes, approximately 110 cars a day was the average traffic count. There are 29 residents on the gravel road portion of George Road.
So I think this boils the issue really down. You have a windy road. You can't even meet two cars on the road. And prior to the project, we had about 110 cars a day. Now we are up. Are we taking account now to get the actual? Are you taking account?
Well, we placed traffic counters out on the roadway this morning to see just to get a snapshot of what the current traffic is. That current traffic is going to be deviated because some of these people were turned around by the sheriff's department, and so maybe they are taking a different route currently, and so we'll have some count, but it may not reflect what the previous traffic was or what the future traffic may be.
But I think it's visiting with residents and actually driving the road and going out there. I can tell you, I'm guessing it's at least 10 times that. So I think the issue here for me, and I have received lots of emails, lots of phone calls, and I'm really not here to make everybody happy. That's not my job. My job really is what's the safest thing. And I know that when we reroute traffic, that also creates safety issues, but this road is not designed to handle the kind of load that we're putting on it. So we as a group need to figure something out.
And I would say about safety also that I discuss safety not just of George Road, but in generalized terms with KDOT on multiple occasions. And KDOT looks at safety in a macro and micro sense. So while there could be an accident, as Commissioner Steben states, during some portion of this project on some secondary roadway. The likelihood of an accident occurring at Exchange Road in K16 this summer was also very high. And so while the 29 residents have probably increased risk of an accident leaving George Road, the residents, the 3,500 other taxpaying residents of Leavenworth County who are using K16, they would have a reduced accident capacity in the future. So they look at total crash data, and so if we were going to experience 20 injury and fatality accidents at the location of Stranger Road from people leaving the restaurant bar establishment in Tonganoxie Lake over the course of the next 5 years or 7 years, and this project obviously created an inconvenience, but you still had the same number of accidents that you would have had this summer regardless of whether the closure occurred or not. They look at the overall reduction over the course of the next 5 to 10 years of dozens of accidents that will not occur because of the result of this investment of several $1 million on their behalf. And so, at least in the short term, this is a major investment that KDOT has made in safety. One of the first that I'm aware of in a long time here in Leavenworth County for safety. They're doing an R-cut down on K7 as well that has detoured traffic. But as we grow as a community and we have urban sprawl, these things are going to occur because you have to be able to have your infrastructure meet the needs of your community. And as the county grows, which it has been at a very fast pace, we're going to see these type of projects and we're going to see this type of inconvenience. So this situation, while it's here today, the decisions you make may be a reflection of what staff does in the future based upon this direction, because this is not the only project that KDOT is currently studying or under design. We also have K32 and 158th Street that they are doing a safety improvement project on, and I know they have done a study at Sandusky and K16, which would be in the same area that would result in a road closure as well.
So, one question for Mark Lawfrey. You studied the minutes. We did, in our minutes, pass a motion with the intention that we would be closing that road to through traffic, correct?
I think that in the minutes, the consensus was to send something to KDOT that said that we would be closing that road and ask them to include the signage for no through traffic. That was the motion at that time.
And that was proactive ahead of time. That's what our decision was, because residents came to the meeting at Helen's Hilltop and they said our road cannot handle this kind of traffic. And we said, well, the commission has proactively made a decision that we would not want that to be open to through traffic. We decided that we discussed it, and it was decided as a group. So the decision was that it was only for the locals. So if we can't enforce that, if we're finding that we can't enforce that, that's where we're getting the petition from the local residents. Close it for 30 days, get better signage on the road, figure out how the enforcement's going to be done with the sheriff, work together with Public Works. That's a very reasonable approach, I think.
I think that I should step aside maybe and let Jamie speak to. He had some things that I think he wanted to speak to about that as well prior to anything.
Come on down, Jamie.
Morning, Commissioners. When I was informed of this from Bill, I had operations manager kind of put together just response times, and that's really what I'm here to speak on behalf. If George Road is closed right there at K16, we are already impeded by K16 being closed. Obviously, our station comes out of Tonganoxie. Currently, with using George Road, it allows us about 7-minute response time. We've drove it. We've used Google. We've done some different. It's about 7 minutes for us from our station up to the K16 and George Road access. If that gets closed down and we have to take alternate routes, whether that's 207th, whether that's 219, taking the gravel roads and up and around, to get back to that intersection, at a bare minimum, we're doubling the time. Doubling the time in ambulance, in a medical emergency, traumatic, anything, means the difference of survival versus pronouncing someone dead. So mine is always on the safety. If we're talking safety aspects, 15 minutes and somebody's in cardiac arrest with nothing being done, that's on survival. So it's already an impact. We've already had lengthy discussions with KDOT. That's why it was delayed a little bit. We had discussions with the fire department, EMS, sheriff's department thing. response time for us is always the prime that we're always looking for. We have to try to get our emergency vehicles and personnel there as quick as possible. It's obviously your decision on what that is, but I think it's fair for emergency services to come and at least.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, may I ask a question? Mark, Dave, what would be the reason why emergency vehicles couldn't continue to go down the closed road? They could use it still.
In order to close the road, to keep people from moving signs or going around signs, the road would have to be closed. I think that's what the issue is closed means barricaded, so that, because this past week there have been signs up that said the road was closed through traffic and barricades were placed, and it didn't really stop the traffic. So I think that's when Commissioner Stevens is asking for the road to be closed. It's closed, barricaded.
Could a locked
and that's
gate?
my interpretation as well, is that we're talking that vehicle.
I mean, is
We
there?
can't deny access to the public in that manner. I mean, a locked
I'm
gate.
just trying to figure out if there would be a way that emergency services could get through. My question for you was, aside from response time and ambulance, can you understand what the residents are saying about the safety on their road?
Absolutely. And again, I look at the safety not only of something that happens on George Road, I have to worry about also anything that happens north of K-16 that I have to get to as well for the other constituents.
So the rest of us.
And that's exactly. It's all. I mean, these are all hard issues. This is not easy. And I'm making half the people in my district mad, no matter what I do here. But I boil it down, like working for the railroad for 28 years. It boils down to safety. And if I feel in my heart after driving the road that there's going to be a severe accident or somebody's child is going to die because we don't take action, then I'm going to have to sleep with myself at night.
I know, but I think that condition already exists then. I mean, I'm just trying to say.
Any road.
But I think that my question still remains enforcement. If there are posted speed limits already on that road, why can't there be enforcement? And then just to slow the traffic down. And then is there a way of saying restricting commercial? Because you were concerned with.
We have a county resolution.
You were concerned with. So then we need to figure out a way of enforcement of commercial, so that we can reduce the number of large, traffic, commercial vehicles,
Unless they have a delivery on that route.
But I think that we need to work on with the sheriff's department, and there's a sheriff's deputy here. I don't know if he can speak to any of that, but on enforcement and enhanced and increased enforcement for the next 30 days, 90 days, to say no. We will ticket you, and you will be, if you're for speeding, and if you are a for commercial traffic, you violate that, we're going to turn you back around. You are not going to get to access that road, and you are going to. I'm just saying so that people.
The opposite has happened though in the last couple of days. We have actually pulled down the road closed to through traffic because KDOT has pulled it down.
Right.
So which I question that, because I know on railroad projects, once you have a safety parameter established, it takes a lengthy process to pull those things down, and for them to react like that. But I think if we're going to enforce the road closed to through traffic, and the sheriff's department's willing to continue to do that, but right now we don't have that in place.
Well, there are.
Close George Road, then it's going to shift to another
Right.
road, and we'll
That's
be
why I
back
said
here
there's
doing
really
the same thing.
right. That's why I said there's really not a good answer as far as trying to do that. But I think that we already have the laws and the ability to enhance enforcement in place. We need to make sure that we are enforcing our own policies.
How does this board make sure that happens?
Well, we're not the elected sheriff.
We can work with. I'm just saying
Exactly.
we need to work with the sheriff's department.
So it's not going to get enforced if we don't do something.
But it might not be enforced if we did.
You going to put a red light on your truck and go chase people down?
It's going to every time.
I'm sorry, but the road is extremely windy and dangerous.
Okay.
And we're
But then it's
3 or
windy
4
and
times
dangerous
more.
before we've ever even had anybody using it as a way of, because there's people that have indicated that they use that anyway as a route to get to and from work.
Mm-hmm.
to go through there. So it's already a danger. By our standard, by what you're saying, we are acknowledging if we do something differently that there is an inherent danger in that road.
No, because the conditions have changed. We had 110 cars, and now we have over 1,000. So that's not the same as before. So the condition has changed, but for the project, we wouldn't have this issue.
So people weren't speeding on that road before.
Well, we had a lot less traffic,
but
even if they were speeding.
Were people speeding during that
time?
Well,
I assume they were, but now you've got 5 times the people speeding.
Well, then we need to enforce.
The only thing that I see that this commission can do to make sure that the road becomes safe is to temporarily shut it down for 30 days, have a conversation with the sheriff's department, have a conversation with Public Works, see if the speed needs to come down, and then slowly reopen and see if it can be done safely.
But then there will be
for the enforcement.
But with the conditions will still exist 60 days later for the remaining.
So after the project's over, we'd have to close it for 30 days and reevaluate.
That's not. We won't have the same amount of traffic.
Well, but we'd still have to study it.
The issue is the amount of traffic that has been placed on the road. The issue is safety. That's all.
And Parallel and Basher's closed too on K7. That's increased the traffic on other roads too.
That is not a road like George Road. And like I said, I have signatures from virtually every resident on the road. They are living it daily.
Madam Chair, could we ask the Sheriff's Department if he has any comments on this?
I'm not sure if he's at liberty to make comments.
You don't know anything?
Okay, please.
Do you know anything? Okay.
Then, can you come forward, please? Thank you. Didn't know if the sheriff
I understand.
Thank you.
I'll start with one. How long have y'all been? I know we've asked you to enforce it. I know it's being done because I'm getting the emails. How long did y'all start enforcing that on that road that you can think of, Lieutenant?
So, really, starting last week, I met with Chris King, the owner or co-owner of the construction company. We kind of discussed some of the issues. My understanding of a road closed to through traffic sign, as was posted, would be lawfully enforceable for us. That's kind of the direction we went. With people running the actual barricades on the project at K16, we've been issuing citations for people driving through the George Road component while the signs were up. We were trying to write warnings. Our guys were so busy out there that we weren't writing warnings. We were essentially just trying to educate and telling people, hey, while these signs are up, as long as this is in place, we're going to enforce the signage.
Have you seen any decrease in the last week since y'all have been up there as far as traffic?
Well, I think as we were enforcing, yes. Those first couple days this week, I think, knocked some of the traffic down now. Now that the signs are gone, I have no idea what's going to happen with traffic. I mean, that would be a survey.
So the signs and you being out there did show a positive impact on that traffic coming down that direction?
I mean, we turned a lot of people away, so okay. I would assume so. That being said, like to us, it doesn't matter if it's a state signage or if the commission makes a determination and puts signage in place. My understanding of how I interpret the statute is that you have the authority to sign local roadways.
Correct.
So long as the signing is in place, we'll enforce the signage. It doesn't matter to us what it is. If the speed limit's 20, we'll enforce 20. If it's 30, we'll enforce 30.
Right.
That being said, before the project, I don't know one way or the other if there were speed limit signs in place on that roadway. My understanding was those 30-mile-an-hour speed limit signs were placed by KDOT, which, again, to us doesn't matter for enforcement. We'll enforce either way.
Right.
But the key to that is if prior to the project there were no speed limit signs in place, all unsigned roadways in the county are 55 miles an hour. In essence, that roadway would have been 55 miles an hour prior to the start of the project. So
I guess the key is as long as we can have support of the Sheriff's Department, and I know y'all do a great job out there and everywhere to stay on top of that, and if we can get the signage, whether KDOT allow us to use it or not, or some form of our own, we're showing a decrease on that traffic. I think the key is the sheriff's department going to be able to put people out there on a regular basis? I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to Andy.
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I've talked to the sheriff. He's fully in support of enforcing whatever signage is in place.
Okay.
So I don't know that we have an opinion specifically on the closure of the road or the
Yeah, I wouldn't ask you
can
that.
or can't
I just
drive
want to make
on
sure you could be
specific
out there on a regular, continuing basis as long as this project's going on.
To enforce the speed limit.
Right.
So if we get the road closed to through traffic signs up and it's even a county sign, you would enforce that?
I would.
Along with the patrol and the other ones, writing citations.
And commercial.
That word gets out quick,
So-
or even warnings. I think that would be the best solution for right now.
KDOT would have studied that road to determine the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Sure. Should have.
So it has been through a traffic study.
I'll tell you honestly, I've driven it in the last couple of days several times, and you'd be a better driver than I am if you want to try to drive that.
No, you don't want to
30 all
drive
the way
it
through.
30.
It's, I mean, it
You're
does
right.
have some rather tight
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
spots. So
And you would testify that there's quite a bit of traffic on the road?
I'm sure there's a lot more traffic on there than was on there
Right.
prior to
Right.
the start of the project. I mean, obviously, we need a counter to tell
But
that.
we have seen a decrease with enforcement, and we continue with the signage.
If we can get our signage back up, and the sheriff enforces it, I think that's a compromise.
And we can also change the speed limit if we choose to, correct?
KDOT put that speed limit. It's
But we can still-
unofficial detour, though.
But we can
We could
still
lower it.
I
lower it
believe statute
by-
allows you to lower it to either 20 or 25. I'd have to
which
go
I
back
think,
and
yeah,
read
I
it.
think that
Yeah, I
that
can't
would be
recall
a,
you speeding.
and then enforce by writing tickets so that people begin to understand. You go down through there and you exceed our posted speed limit, you are going to receive a ticket and you're going to have to spend time paying the fine.
And also report back, if we could, in a week or 10 days to see if that count and those people that are violating that or getting those signed agreements to come to the county clerk's office to pay their fine, if that's decreased the amount of traffic we've got going down there. My concern, Mike, I agree with you on safety, Guy, and Jamie, I listened to absolutely what you had to say. Because, being a past police officer, I know what a couple minutes can do, partner. But I think right now I would like to see something with a little enforcement, which y'all been doing a great job, and those signs, Bill, if possible, so we can go that route. That would be yes, Mark.
Just a second, Bill. Commissioners, I think there's maybe a disconnect here. I want to make sure that we understand exactly what you're talking about. First is the speed limit signs and enforcement. Second is the no-through commercial traffic signs, which are up, and we'll put the resolution number out there so that it becomes legal per our resolution.
Right.
But the road closed to through traffic signs are down. They're not out there.
Right.
Are you asking that we put the county road closed to through traffic signs back up? Because
So they can enforce it.
I don't believe legally we have the authority to do that, and that would be a question for David. But I just want to be sure that we understand what it is you're asking us to do.
I just think
The
that
first two, I think, are easy. They're already there. We'll make sure those happen. And enforcement of the speed limit.
But the state had the road,
third one is the question.
but the state had the road closure already out there, right?
Those are gone.
Yeah, but I'm saying they at one time put those out there
They took them down because they decided that they were not legal to be up.
because it was on a.
Because it's actually on a road that's not closed.
Not being worked on.
I got you. Okay.
That's what they stated their chief counselor stated that because there is not a construction project, to summarize it, because there's no construction activity on George Road, it was not lawful for them to continue to mark that to through traffic. Through traffic signs are to control construction areas by the MUTCD guidelines, and so therefore they deemed it outside of the bounds of their ability to sign it. So they removed the signs, and basically I would follow their guidance unless you guys direct us otherwise.
Is it not a fact, and this is for the county councilor, that but for this project, we wouldn't have this type of traffic on that road, so therefore the road closed to through traffic implications and the reasoning would apply to the signage?
Commissioner, I'm sorry, could you restate that question?
But for the project, we wouldn't have the amount of traffic on that road. Therefore, the signage, road closed to through traffic rules should be able to be applied to that road.
Well, Commissioner, I'm not an engineer.
But you are an attorney.
I'm an attorney. And when I tell you I'd be speculating to agree with your question as proposed, what I'd like to offer to you folks is the following. Let's look at the facts of this. The fact is this is a dedicated public road.
Right.
It is for public use. There is no county repair or construction activity along George Road. State statute, it's KSA 682101 at sequence, which I believe Chief Counsel for KDOT relied upon, is when you have construction activity or alteration activity on a public road, you can restrict public access to that road. Absent that, though, you need to have some pretty substantial reasoning to deprive the public access to that road, because, Commissioner, the way I would look at it is if you put up closed to through traffic signs on that road, you are in essence turning that into a private road.
On a temporary basis.
On any basis.
But
state statute seems to indicate that that is allowable when you have construction activity upon it. What I would offer to you is, from the facts that are before us this morning, the most viable option you might have, or you have, would be to post the speed limit signs at 30 miles an hour, because I believe we do have a KDOT engineering analysis that a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit is appropriate.
I don't know. We have speed limit signs that were put up as part of the project that the Sheriff's Department has stated are enforceable. How they establish that, I'm not aware of.
Then you have a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit sign, not the 55-mile-per-hour unsigned speed limit. You have a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit sign. The county currently has a resolution regarding the prohibition of through commercial traffic on county roads, allowing destination points. Those signs can be posted as well. I think to go beyond that, though, you get into some gray areas with respect to your authority, particularly in the absence of a detailed engineering study on what may be done on this. Commissioner, I was not aware of the informal detour route letter that you presented this morning, and quite frankly, I don't know what an informal detour route is supposed to mean, other than it wasn't a formal detour route, because as Mark stated is correct, KDOT can't really do that formally. So I think they may have found out that what they did in offering that informal detour route was not really allowable. However, the primary issue, as Commissioner Stephen pointed out, is road safety. Now, none of us, at least 6 of us, 7 are engineers, specifically traffic engineers, so our opinions as to what is a safe or unsafe road is really pretty speculative. However, the volume of traffic has evidently increased, and enforcement of the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, enforcement of the no-through commercial traffic are immediately available to you to address those issues. If you wish to consider actually closing a terminus point on George Road, that is a different matter.
So we could use the road closed to through commercial traffic, or road closed to through traffic?
Not legally.
Just commercial.
Just do commercial, but we cannot post the sign. And the statute reads, I mean, I have not read the statute, but the statute obviously is referencing where there's road work,
yes,
creating an issue. I would say that the road work has definitely created the issue on this road. So, and I also would reference the minutes where the commission voted that we were going to close it to through traffic.
But I think through traffic, the legal definition, Commissioner Stephen, is somebody that is coming from outside of the area using that, whereas the people who live within that area, not necessarily on George Todd Road, that does, we can't preclude them because they don't live on that road. So because the whole taxpayer base, self-included, helps pay for that road.
So that gets back to the original discussion, was that the residents would like the road to be closed for 30 days on a temporary basis until Public Works, the sheriff, can get together, figure out, are we going to sign it at 20 mile an hour? Do we need to do some road grading? Do we need to, what do we need to do? Because what I'm hearing is we're just going to leave a speed limit sign up. The deputy said that when they had the road closed to through traffic sign up, he was seeing a reduction in traffic. What I'm hearing here is that you're not going to allow, that they're saying that there's a legal issue of whether we can put that up or not. So we're back to square one, is we're going to have the raceway on George Road, and that's where the residents are very concerned.
I think patrolling it right.
Yeah, they can't patrol it if it's not.
Well, let me
they certainly can for a posted speed limit.
Well, they can do that,
they can
but
write tickets, and they can certainly stop people who are commercial vehicles using it as a thoroughfare. They can certainly enforce that. We can also have a sign that may say closed to commercial traffic that's nice and big so that people understand you cannot, as a commercial vendor, use this roadway.
To me, nothing changes. If we do nothing changes, and we have the same issue that we have out on the road. So I'm telling you that this is what I'm bringing from my constituents.
So you'd rather us turn into a police state and have the cops
Mr. Smith, a police state.
Can I see your papers, please, before you travel on this road?
Mr. Smith, you know that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and you know what?
That's
How
ridiculous.
many years have you been dealing with road? Because I can tell you,
safety is the only issue here. It's not about
and I don't need
police
state.
You know,
what if we replace the two on the west end of George Road?
This is about safety on the road. That's why I'm representing the constituents here.
And the project is about safety, and that's why the project.
That's what, and we're not talking about closing the road permanently. We're talking about a hiatus here. And
I just don't think it's going to take 30 days to do that.
Well, maybe
that's close that one for 30 days, then we're going to be back here talking about Hatch. What are we going to do about
Hatchell is not the same road.
Talking about Hagwood. What are we going to do about Hagwood?
You know, we knew that when this project.
Come on, guys.
It's not even on the agenda, so I don't even know why we're sitting there.
Madam Chair, can I just one last thing? Mike just said, could we honestly take a breather here? Could we get a report back from the Sheriff's Department on what you're doing on that enforcement? If you're seeing a decrease in the next week, to see exactly where we're at. Because if we're seeing a decrease, we're accomplishing the same thing. I don't know how we do it with numbers, how you can, I'm sure there's some way that you can figure out how you can tell us how many cars have gone down since you're writing tickets and
we have a counter
The
and doing everything.
numbers would be based on the traffic counter.
We have a traffic counter.
Yeah.
So we don't have any, as a Public Works Department, we have no analysis of what it was at for the couple of days that the road was using it before the Sheriff's Department.
But Bill, you could start today.
We have
you tell us next Wednesday.
There's actually one out there as of yesterday.
Good.
But that still doesn't necessarily answer the question of, we're to a point where KDOT Chief Counsel has stated that it is not in compliance with the MUTCD to put up road closed to through.
And I'm not saying that.
And so we have, and to Commissioner Cause's point, there are no commercial traffic through traffic signs out there. We need to add the 2009-050 resolution sign to the bottom of that. There are 35-mile-an-hour speed limit signs. The real discussion here today, if we want to operate without, as Councilor Van Paris stated, in some sort of gray area, the question would be that whether or not you would close that road on a temporary basis. The signage is up currently except for the resolution sign. And so either you leave the road open to traffic as a public roadway or you close it entirely, which your EMS director has spoken to today on his concerns regarding that. So that is really what we're down to is we have already asked KDOT's permission to put the resolution number underneath their existing sign for commercial traffic. We already have the speed limit of 30 miles an hour. Mr. Van Paris has advised that we don't put up the road closed to through traffic signs because that does not constitute the guidelines in the MUTCD. And so we're really at a question of do we close the road or do we leave the road open to traffic for a temporary basis? If we close the road, as Mr. Lawfrey stated, people have stolen 3 or 4 of the signs out there already, and they've thrown them in the ditches on a daily basis. So if we close the road as a road department, we will need to do that with some sort of fairly substantial structure that is not removable for gating or any other type of structure. It needs to be breakaway for public safety. But it will need to be something affixed to the ground in order to keep traffic from going through there.
You know, Bill, I hear what you're saying, but I also saw how many people are signing up and sending a complaint. So I was trying to find a compromise. If we can't at least wait a week to get a count from the sheriff's department to tell us is that enforcement working or not, then yeah, we'll probably have to make a decision one way or the other. But I'd like to see the numbers, and you said you've already got a counter, and I guarantee you the word will get out not to go down that road, especially if they're getting cited and not warned.
Right.
And we bring that back to us. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It'd only be cited. There's nothing to cite a person for if they're not speeding. So,
You're telling me they're not speeding from what I'm hearing? It's a little bit of a dragway, so.
All I was going to say is that the issuing traffic citations will slow people down. It may not necessarily divert them from their route.
Right.
So if we have X number of cars today and we go enforce, we may have X number of cars going slower next week. But I don't know how many people would.
Wouldn't you say that?
They have to drive 30 then decide to not use that.
And I'm not going there. I think that'd be one aspect of it. Well, wouldn't you say that driving 30 would be better than driving the 55 on it? Or trying to make that turn? What I'm trying to say is.
If there's somebody that can drive 55 out there.
I know, I've been down
they
it.
will.
So what I'm trying to say, there's people speeding down there. So we've got to be able to do something with that speed to at least start the process. And if they're speeding, if they're going slower down that road, then that's a safety factor. As you will know, stopping distance and everything else on sight distance on a road is very important. I don't think I want to hear what the people have to say to me. It's been very obvious they want to close, but I'm trying to find another route so we don't interfere with everything. So I'm trying to find some kind of compromise to do that. And I think law enforcement right now, plus the signage on the commercial, is our best bet. Not for the final project, but for to look at for a week or two to see if it's improving any.
The project's been going for just a few days, and we've already had 3 or 4 mailboxes have been knocked off. We've had citizens that have.
What do you want to do, Madam Chair?
Well, I think that we need to step back, take a little bit of a breather for a week. I mean, and to really look at and discuss and do some enforcement, because I do think that when people begin to realize that it's not worth going there and get pulled over, because that's going to remove any advantage that you had of trying to go to a faster route if you get pulled over because you were speeding. And I think that we need to look at whether or not we can adjust that speed down to 25 or, and then to stop and turn around any commercial. And if they have business there, then they can state what residence they're going to. If it's an Amazon truck or something like that, they can tell you what address it is that they are going to, and then you can let them go on through. But if it's a commercial vehicle, they get stopped, and if they're not authorized to be there, they need to turn around and go back where they came from, or cite them even then for going on a road closed.
I will say, when you say stopped, with the way this road is, the most likely way that we're going to stop vehicles is to take measurement, whether that's speed or whether they're commercial, and we're going to wait until they get to one end of the roadway or the other. We're probably not going to be conducting actual traffic stops in the section of George Road. There's not really a safe way to do that and allow traffic to
that makes sense.
around our vehicles.
Makes sense.
But we need to have the signs up for sure that say the road is closed to commercial vehicles, and make it large enough that people actually can, sometimes you don't look at the little.
The issue is really not the commercial vehicles, though. The issue is the volume of traffic.
Through traffic.
Well, but people have a right to use a public road for, unless
it's safe.
I understand, but it wasn't safe before they were using it to begin with. Then, I mean, nothing has changed when it comes to the road not being the safest route to go anywhere.
Well, volume of traffic affects safety.
Commissioners,
and I do understand that, but I think that we need to take that.
I can appreciate the nature of the conversation and how passionate everybody is on this and how important it is to several people. Right now we have a direction, which is the speed limit signs and the no commercial traffic. in order to do anything else, we need a motion to either close it to through traffic, or if we don't get that motion, then we're just going to go with the speed limit that's posted and the no commercial traffic. So,
I just don't think
we do have
Lots to do.
agenda items.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion that we close George Road at K16 for 30 days. Public Works Director, the sheriff, and county staff sits down, talks about what the speed limit's going to be, if there needs to be any road work done on the road, and then we re-evaluate the situation in order to protect the safety, public health, and welfare of the residents of that area as per the petitions that I've been presented with.
Motion. Is there a second?
I can't do it yet.
Motion fails by lack of a second.
Okay, I represented you folks.
Commissioners, I do have one other administrative business item.
Mark, can I say one more thing on this issue real quick? I mean, I do not mind if after I get a report back, this comes back in front of me again to take another look at this to see if anything's working. If not, then I'd be more inclined to take a more serious approach to it. Thank you.
So the direction to staff is also to bring back information regarding the traffic from beginning today when the counter, or yesterday, was in place, and then also whether or not there have been citations and the number that have been made or the number of stops, and bring that back to us in a week. And at that point in time, we can discuss any further action that might need to be taken.
Yep.
Is that understood?
I'd like to revisit, yep.
And I'd appreciate if you'd pass that along to Sheriff Dedeke as well. Thank you.
Tell him thanks for all the help, too.
Thank you.
If you would.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and move on.
I think Mark had something.
Mark,
I interrupted him.
Oh, sorry.
What would you like? I can wait until the rest of your done, or you want me to go?
I just, point of clarification here, Commissioner Stevens had sent out a survey to your, and I had somebody drop one off and want to know if it was from the whole county commission. And I said, no, it is Commissioner Stevens alone, not the county commission did not send this out. They were confused because it's on county letterhead.
What's the letterhead say at the top?
It says from your desk.
That's right.
It says County of Leavenworth, and it starts
right,
off
it's
the
my letterhead.
It says county commissioners have been. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows it's from Commissioner Stevens. And
all my correspondence that I send out is always on my letterhead.
And any letter that Commissioner Stevens writes in the paper, we don't approve it, we don't look at it, we don't see it till it shows up in the paper.
And you're free to write any kind of an article you'd like to submit to.
Absolutely. But
I'm very, very glad that you were able to point that out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, you didn't send it to me because I'm not in your
Commissioner
district.
Smith has.
No,
You didn't have anything?
No.
Okay, now, Mr. Lawfrey.
Commissioners, the Council on Aging has an opportunity for some additional grant funding, I believe. So Connie's here just to ask you for your approval.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks, Jamie.
On Friday, we were notified from Kansas Department of Aging and Disability that we would be receiving a $62,993 grant, one-time monies that would help to support any kind of budget shortfall for the nutrition program. There's a quick turnaround on this one, so we received it on Friday. It needs to be signed to say we would like to accept this nearly $63,000 grant. There's no county match. It's just one-time monies.
Well, I don't think
Mark?
we can turn that down.
You have anything on David?
I actually think that because there's no financial obligation to the county, Connie probably could have signed it, but we just wanted to be safe.
Okay.
Commissioner, it is legal to accept money from outside sources.
Well, no, look at Congress.
No, I think that absolutely, please sign the letter or sign the application.
We have to
Since she's here, if y'all would
Make a motion? I would move that we approve Connie signing the application for funding.
Second.
Motion is second. Begin voting with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
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 Aye, vote aye.
Thank you.
Good job, young lady. Good job.
Thank you. Any other administrative business? All right, then let's move on to the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda today?
If not, Madam Chair, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Begin voting with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Aye.
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 And I vote aye. Okay, consent agenda is approved. Now we are down to formal board action. Okay, we need to consider a motion to approve the amendments to the acceptable use policy for the Information Systems Department. Mr. Marlborough, come on down.
Morning, Larry.
Morning, Larry.
You summarized it nicely, Chairperson. I would request that you amend the acceptable use policy with the changes that I had outlined in the RBA. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about this particular document.
No questions?
I don't have
Have
any
questions? No? Then I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the amendments to the acceptable use policy for the Information Systems Department.
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting with Doug Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
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 And I vote aye.
Thank you so
That was
much.
painless, wasn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry you had to wait so long.
That's all right. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, now, Jamie, we need to consider a motion to approve community corrections to utilize opiate settlement funding from municipalities' Fighting Addiction Fund to establish a cognitive program facilitator.
Yes, good morning. I also think that you summarized it. We're just requesting to spend the county's opiate funding to establish a cognitive facilitator for adult programs. Obviously, we've done a lot to establish juvenile programs, and that's helped, but there's nothing for adults. We'd like to break those patterns and address the thinking errors with this funding and establish this position.
Any questions?
Is this a one-time?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Commissioners, the money for this is the funding from the opioid settlements from all of the
Right.
pharma companies that are paying the hundreds of billions that the state chose to take our share of and trickle some of it back to us.
Yeah.
Jamie has been very good about trying to find funding for this through the state, but at this point we've identified that this is our best and most logical resource. It acknowledges in the job description and in the request that it is one-time funding. We'll continue to receive some of this funding as the settlements come in. So there will, in all likelihood, this is probably a 5-year funding option.
Okay.
At that point, either we get funding permanently because
Right.
of the success of it, or the position goes.
That was my question.
And
Thank you,
I think
Mark.
that
Let's hope it's successful and don't have to worry about
it's
it.
a solid use of the funding that was provided
Right.
to me, to the county for.
But you think 5 years is going to cover that?
I think when we get all of our money, by the time we get all of
Okay,
it.
that's a good time.
Right
Okay.
now, this is about a 3-year funding where we're at right now.
Right, I got you.
Commissioner Stevens, you had a
Yeah,
question?
for the county councilor, can you tell us this opioid settlement, what these companies have basically settled because they're accepting some degree of liability for getting people addicted, or explain the settlement?
Well, Commissioners, I'm certain that the settlement terms, which I have not been privy to the dozens of, disclaims any responsibility, but it states that they will provide funding. That being said, as was referenced to you by Mark, the state of Kansas, by legislative action, more or less took the proceeds that would be due to Leavenworth County and the other counties in the state that filed actions against the opioid manufacturers and distributors, and chooses to distribute it under their formula. That formula, unlike some others, is, I'll use that word again, not even gray area. It's a little fuzzy, but I believe that Jamie's done a very good job in trying to identify the parameters that we can operate within, and this, in my opinion, meets within those parameters. But as far as the details, since the state took it over and it's being more or less run out of the Office of the Attorney General, I can't really give you much more specific information than that.
Okay.
Thank you. And I think that It's like I said, I think it's a very
Absolutely.
solid use of the funding that we've received, and for Jamie's
Good use
department
of
to
it.
work with the adults that are
Yep.
experiencing
Agree.
those addiction issues.
So you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a
Madam
motion.
Chair, I move that we approve community corrections to utilize opioid settlement funding from municipalities fighting addiction fund to establish a cognitive program facilitator.
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
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 And I vote aye. Thank you, Jamie. And
Thank you,
just,
Jamie.
As an FYI, Jamie, myself, the sheriff, and several other staff from Leavenworth County will be attending a conference at the end of this month, and some of this type of information will be shared during that process. We will be in Houston.
Yeah, we're going to Houston, and actually one of the abatement purposes for this funding was specifically for drug courts. So based on what we learned there, we may be able to go after additional money that's in the KFAF funds, not the municipalities portion, but there are already grants open for that as well. We have to identify where the municipal funds go for first before we start expanding and asking the state for their 75% of the $383 million.
Right.
Good.
But that's just something that's going to be happening. So at the same time, we're going to need another chair for that meeting as well, just an FYI. Thank you, Jamie. Go ahead.
Jamie, is there has there developed across the state or within our region or Leavenworth County, are there any trends developing as far as opioids and what kind of drugs are problematic now? Has any of that shifted at all in the last while?
No, I think it remains pretty stable with fentanyl, opiates, synthetics, anything people can get their hands on. I mean, you see kratom, you see anything that people can get that's legal. People continually will try to bypass drug tests to find something that's not on a panel. I mean, addiction is being replaced. You see one for another. People aren't using their drug of choice. Then they'll turn to what is legal, alcohol. I mean, addiction has other underlying causes, and I think we have to address those. We can't look at these things as separate. I don't think it's necessarily about the substance. I think it's just about dealing with triggers and things that cause people to leave just as much as it is getting people away from the chemical dependency.
Well, I really appreciate everything you're doing.
Yep, we are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, next, we need to consider a motion to approve Resolution 2023-11, a request for a special use permit for a soil borrow site and clean rubble landfill for Lexico. Welcome.
Got the full force. Good morning. Before you is a request for a new special use permit at the property located at 0000 Springdale Road. As mentioned, this is a special use permit for Leavenworth Excavation and Equipment Company. They are requesting this for a soil borrow site and a clean rubble landfill. They actually do have a similar site about less than a mile down the road from this specific site. So what they would do is they would take soil from that property in those holes that they have created. They would then bring back clean rubble that they have from their construction projects, bury it, and then proceed as they go across the property. Simple analysis of what they're doing. They are requesting the site be operable from 7 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. They anticipate that majority of this work would happen during spring and summer construction season. However, they would like the site to be able to be operable throughout the year in case there's nice weather in the winter and fall. That would allow them to continue operating for their construction sites. Let's see. They are not proposing to build any structures on the property. They would just be using equipment on the site. They only anticipate one employee being there on a fairly regular basis. They will have other employees obviously come to the site to help whenever they are loading or unloading material. But at this time, they only anticipate that one employee to be there somewhat regularly. As mentioned, this is accessing off of Springdale Road, which is state highway. They did have to contact KDOT to increase their entrance permit to allow for the type of truck traffic that they would like to generate. They did receive that approval, which was included in your agenda packet. The Planning Commission did consider this actually in January of this year. They waited to get the response back for KDOT for the upgraded entrance permit, so they voted on this in May. They voted 4-3 with 3 absent to approve the special use permit, so it is before you guys now. If you have any other questions, the staff report goes through the full analysis for you.
Number 7, comprehensive plan.
Sorry, what was that?
Comprehensive plan.
The comprehensive plan has this area identified as mixed residential. However, there is some business and industrial uses in the vicinity.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, so 4-3. What was the counter arguments?
Their concern was the truck traffic on the roadway, just landfill in general. There was concern about that being in this location. I think that was usually the kind of main comment we received back from the commissioners that voted against this.
And it's private, though, totally private.
Yes, they are only recommending this for their own private use. A condition of recommended approval is that a sign be placed on the site that says this is a private landfill only.
And obviously, when we have construction going on in the county, we have to have somewhere to dispose of the waste.
Usually that is what happens, yes.
Yes.
Okay. I went out to the site several times. They've made off-site improvements.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've
they
seen
have
it.
cleared brush on
Yep.
KDOT right away, on private property on the other side of the road to get sight distance. They've got an asphalt driveway.
Yeah.
And as far as across the street for years was a salvage yard.
Yeah, it was.
So,
a lot of years.
And I think this is a great location for this. It's on the state highway. It keeps the trucks off our county roads. It's next to the KDOT road department, which has more dump trucks than Lexico has going in and out.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is a problem.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-11, request for a special use permit for a sole borrow site and clean rubble landfill for Lexico.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Freeman? Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith? And just for perception only, I will abstain from voting on this matter. Okay. Thank you. That was
Thank you.
painless.
We can make it painful. Just for you. Thanks.
You didn't have to end with that, Greg.
Too bad you didn't get that job, huh?
Okay, now we're down. We need to consider a motion to approve Resolution 2023-12, a request for a special use permit for Horses and Heroes Incorporated. Thank you.
As mentioned, this is also a new special use permit for Horses and Heroes. It fits under the use category stable/medical clinic. What they're actually doing is operating an equine therapy facility on the premises. They do have a traditional site that is located, I believe, in the city of Basel, where you will have your traditional therapy sessions. However, what they're proposing on this property is the use of horses to assist in treatment of primarily first responders and military and veterans. The property in question has a house, and they have applied for a barn, which has been built, to my understanding, or is completed to my understanding, where they would house these horses and all the equipment that is associated with this type of business. They had indicated in the application that in the future they would like to extend on to that barn to allow for 2 intake rooms, potentially a meeting room and bathrooms. A condition that staff has recommended is that new addition be compliant with our building codes, potentially a commercial building permit, depending on the type of use that they're proposing. They are requesting to operate this business from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Saturday. They only anticipate about 5 clients would come to the site per day, and that would be at staggered times, not all at once. They anticipate during those sessions they would have obviously their client, they would have an equine expert, and then a therapist on site to assist with the facilitation of that practice. So anticipating, up to 15 guests per day to this site. Let's see. They do anticipate some small groups would be coming out potentially on Saturdays. I believe they mentioned that was usually located or with like the VFW or something. A lot of times they will help either do some work on the property, volunteer, that type of thing, but also come out and use the services if needed. Let's see. Other than that, this property is located on McIntyre Road, which is a local road. It is a a gravel road that has been upgraded. Public Works did review this. They did not indicate anything else besides wanting a turning radius for that entrance onto the property to accommodate any type of trailer that would come associated with that type of business. The turning radius was submitted and accepted. Other than that, we did not receive any other significant comments. The Planning Commission did review this in May, and they voted 6-0 to approve this before you guys. So if you have any questions, let us know, but the rest of the information is in the staff report.
I went out and drove by the facility. Yeah. It's a nice place. The driveway access on top of a hill. It's a real nice place. And my question is, this doesn't fall under agriculture?
No, horses typically are not considered an agricultural use when it's used in this type of manner. They would usually have to be for something agriculture in nature, like if they're running plows or something along those lines.
Farm work.
Okay, well.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-12, request for special use permit for Horses and Heroes, Inc.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Any other questions?
I think it sounds like a great
It is. Could this fall under ag tourism then?
I know where you're going with that. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think so because it's a therapeutic.
That sounds like a work session.
Well, it's just animals. I just think animals and agriculture
go together.
It's definitely a farm barn. Look from the road. I mean,
right.
But it's a very nice facility. And hopefully they're real successful at this. I'm done.
Okay.
Motion and second.
Motion and second. Begin voting with Doug Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
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 And I vote aye. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now we need to consider a motion to approve the construction contract for the E48 bridge replacement project with Donlinger Construction.
Commissioners, in previous meetings, you had accepted the low bid from Donlinger Construction on this project. We did receive multiple bids for this bridge construction. The low bid was $418,513.50. As always, we ask for a contingency for any unforeseen issues, SWIP inspections, and other things to move forward. So in total, this request is for $439,439 for the contractual obligations on this project.
And it's a budget item.
It's a budget item. It's actually another grant that we received. This was a local bridge grant.
Good.
So
Good. Great.
We will be receiving reimbursement for $150,000 for this structure through the local bridge program and KDOT local projects.
Bill, the only reason I said that is because I want people to know they're watching that y'all do a great job getting grants, and this is money that's been set aside every time we do the budget, so it's right in place of what we usually do.
And it's up in Commissioner Culverson's district.
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Jump on it, Jeff.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the construction contract for E48 bridge replacement project from Donlinger Construction.
Excuse me.
You need to.
Please. We have a discussion going on here. Thank
Do you need the dollar amount added to that, or no?
Not to exceed $439,439.
So
Second.
That.
I have a motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
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 And I vote aye. Okay. And then now we need to consider a motion to accept the High Risk Rural Roads Program Award for Tonganoxie Road Safety Improvements Project for fiscal year 2025 and approve the project programming request form.
Commissioners, we're excited to publicly announce here today at the meeting that we did receive another high-risk rural roads grant. for Tonganoxie Road. This project is located north of the existing project that we have been working on that we are starting right-of-way acquisition on. This project begins 1.11 miles south of the intersection of 189th Street and continues to a 0.15 miles north of the intersection. That should say Hollingsworth. The project corridor is a major collector between the cities of Leavenworth and Tonganoxie. As you know, this was the second highest accident location in the county. The first highest was the area just south of this. This was the second highest. It is a 90-10 grant. So we are responsible for the right-of-way acquisition. Does not count towards that. That is 90-10 of the construction costs. So the total project costs were $101,304,000 estimated, and the KDOT contribution to the project will be $1,151,000. We were very lucky to get these projects. Statewide, there was only $8.8 million awarded. So of that $8.8 million, we were lucky enough to receive $1.15.
I don't think luck plays into it. I think your staff does a great job, and 90-10 is always welcome.
Yeah,
I love
90-10. It's as good as it gets.
It doesn't get any better than that. Not more.
On the Tonganoxie Road was supposed to be upgraded on the 2006 sales tax to 16. It was supposed to be upgraded from Tonganoxie to Leavenworth, and the funds didn't come in, and the commissioners didn't honor it. Voters passed it.
Past commissions.
So we're trying to get caught up with what was promised to the voters back in 2006.
Yep.
It turned slow. But with that being said, on the first grant that you received on Tonganoxie Road, that project will let this year at the fall?
It's currently on the letting for September. More than likely, it'll be pushed back to a November, December timeframe by KDOT. We don't want to start that project at the very beginning of winter, then shut down Tonganoxie Road for a winter shutdown for concrete or any type of asphalt work, and then reopen it and have a longer duration, because they will do a hard shutdown of Tonganoxie Road for that project. So it'll probably bid. It is a KDOT-let project, so it will probably bid in November, December. We have just started right-of-way acquisitions. And it will most likely begin in February, March.
Okay. And is it a 120-day project?
Well,
we don't know,
KDOT,
I guess.
Well, with KDOT, they generally give a larger window than is necessary maybe for the projects. And so I think it may have been a 160-day window, but generally they built those days in because you pre-contract your inspection, and so they want to make sure not to exceed those hours, but it would probably be about a 120-day shutdown.
Okay. And KDOT will come up with the detour design on this project?
Yes, KDOT has already approved it.
Through Johnson County.
Yeah, through Johnson County. So in this situation, Mitchell Road will be a hard closure. I know we've had some concerns from the citizens, but that will be a fully barricaded closures, and the edge of the road will be cut off. So
it's part of the project.
It's part of the project. So no one will be able to go westbound on Mitchell Road, and traffic will have to divert north.
Or eastbound.
East or westbound.
Right. Sounds lovely.
So the intersection will be closed.
The intersection will be closed. Okay. But to Commissioner Stevens' point, we will get a lot of traffic. That road actually has a higher traffic count than K16, I believe, or at least equal to K16. I think it may
like
have
4,000.
I think it may have 4,000 vehicles a day, and those traffic will be exiting north of the location and generally going westbound to go back southbound and going around the project. So it will be similar to George Road's situation, where we have a road full closure over a couple of different summers, where traffic will be diverting onto local roads at a volume similar to K16.
KDOT can spend all the money they want in my district. We'll deal with it. So, anyways, on the next portion that we're talking about today, and that was a 2026 construction project?
Well, fiscal year 25, but probably either it'll either go in 25 or 26. They haven't gave us the we have to accept it, and then they'll send us out a project schedule, and
Right.
they'll put it on a 24 month.
So it's more likely it's 2026.
More than likely, it'll be 26.
And then we're applying for more grants to get to Leavenworth, correct?
Well, we still have a pending application for the intersection up to the north at 175th Street. That was an HSIP grant, which is also through high-risk rural roads that we applied for $1.2 million worth of funding. It was identified in our local road safety plan as the highest accident rate intersection, and so that application is still pending. We have 3 bridge applications pending that we submitted for, and then we were also, as Mr. Loffrey stated earlier, we did receive the $975,800 in the Kansas Cost Share Program, which we're extremely excited about. There were 73 applications and 14 projects were chosen, and so we received nearly $1 million in that of the $11 million statewide. So a lot of grants going, and we're hopeful to continue to get them.
I appreciate the funds that KDOT are providing for us, because I think we're getting a lot more than we used to.
Yeah.
We got to play catch up. So.
Thank you, Bill.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the High Risk Rural Roads Program Award for Tonganoxie Road Safety Project for year 2025 and approve the project programming request form.
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting or any further discussion first?
I would second what Commissioner Smith said. I think the Public Works is doing a great job on these grants. I think we're seeing some progress, and I think hopefully this regional study that we're doing, hopefully that will result in some additional funding options.
Yeah, I agree, Mike.
It will, but it won't be on local roads. It'll be on state roads, probably. But
I think
Everything helps.
doing a good job.
Everything helps.
Yep,
but,
that's a fact.
you know, like I said, this is in my district, and I'll take anything KDOT wants to throw my way.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So let's begin voting with you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I vote aye. Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Now we are at presentations and discussion items. Would you like to start with this, Commissioner Culbertson?
Probably work out better.
Okay, go ahead.
So for over 3 years now, I've been talking to the landowner that has a high-pressure natural gas line running through his backyard. The metal gas line is no longer buried underground. It has surfaced in the creek about 200 feet from his house. If this line were to explode, the house would be well within the quarter-mile blast zone emergency preparedness told me could occur. And I think I provided you guys some photos in the last week of some incidents similar to that, showing what happens when these gas lines explode. I've been working with the representatives of the gas line to try and get the issue resolved. We, the landowner, and myself have asked the company to repeatedly follow the national pipeline safety regulations and rebury the line. The company says regulations only state the high-pressure lines needs to be buried 24 inches deep at installation. Nowhere do the regulations say if the line becomes exposed from erosion or for whatever reason, they're required to rebury the line. I've reached out to KCC, OCC, KDHE, Kansas Department of Agriculture, Kansas Department of Water Resources, since this is in a creek, FEMA, since this is in a floodplain, NAPSR, Corps of Engineers, PHMSA, EPA, and probably a dozen other entities that I've forgotten over the last 3 years that I've talked to. They all said the regulations leave a loophole. I've talked to the other counties and cities across the country with similar situations. Some have had success in their areas by passing local resolutions to cover this loophole. I would like to propose that we pass a county resolution using PHMSA's own guidelines that any exposed high-pressure gas lines be reburied to prescribed depths for the safety of our citizens. So I'd like to make a motion that we pass Resolution 2023-13, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Leavenworth, Kansas, pursuant to the home rule powers granted them by the provisions of KSA 19-101 and 19-101A, adopting certain regulations regarding high-pressure natural gas pipelines located within Leavenworth County.
David, do you have anything?
Yes, if I could, Commissioner Smith, members of the Commission. Commissioner Culbertson brought this matter to my attention several years ago. it has been a arduous journey to get to some point of action with respect to recovering that pipeline. And first of all, I'd like to point out the issue of whether or not that natural gas pipeline is covered or not is not one of aesthetics, it's one of safety. When that line is uncovered, it can be hit by farm equipment. In this specific case, brush piles up against it, which leads to pressure on that line. Further, brush does occasionally burn. So the county's concern is not that it's simply there's an exposed pipeline on the ground. It's an exposed pipeline that creates an additional safety hazard. With Commissioner Culberson's assistance, I did review the Department of Transportation pipeline safety regulations, and the resolution that was crafted adopts those regulations by reference. However, it does specifically state that in interpreting the provisions with regards to the burial of a high-pressure natural gas pipeline, that not only would the pipeline have to be covered at the time of its installation, that it would have to remain covered. And there is a provision within the proposed resolution that would require that action be taken within a relatively short period of time to, again, address the issue of safety. Subsequent to preparing that resolution and circulating to that, Mark was able to set up a telephone conference with representatives of Representative LaTurner, Senator Marshall, and Senator Moran last Friday. It was a telephone conference, and their staff did state that they would look into this and convey the county's concerns to the committee that was hearing the appropriations bill for the Department of Transportation, and particularly this division. I'd like to credit Mark on this. We got a response from Senator Moran's office Monday that the chairman of the committee had expressed interest in this issue and had requested additional information. Further, subsequent to that telephone conference, action, at least some action, is being taken by the Department of Transportation Department to contact the operator of that natural gas pipeline to look into covering it. So that's where we are at this point in time.
Mr. Chairman?
Second that.
No, I didn't get a second. That's why I said, so can we go ahead and, I have a
I'll
motion.
second.
Okay, and then any further discussion?
All right. Two questions. Is this law preempted by any federal or state statute or administrative regulation? That's the first question. And the second question is, what's the enforcement mechanism for us?
Well, I'm certain that the pipeline companies would argue that it's preempted by federal law because they do not like local control over their facilities. As far as enforcement, it could be enforced similar to any other county resolution. That is either seeking an injunction through district court or actions under codes court for violation of county resolutions. The real issue, Commissioner, is to try to gain the attention of the operators of these pipelines that Leavenworth County takes this matter seriously, and we want those lines covered, recovered when they, through erosion or other actions, are surfaced. So that's my statement at this time. I had contemplated providing a copy of this resolution to the Office of the Legal Counsel for the Department of Transportation Pipeline Safety Committee, one, to gain their attention and to see if they had any direct input. But federal preemption is always argued when you have an interstate commerce operator facing local regulation.
So it's your opinion that this is enforceable?
I think under your home rule powers and the general broad powers that are granted to you under state statute, that yes, you can adopt this resolution. It will certainly be subject to challenge if we move to enforce it. I believe it's the hope of all parties directly involved that the pipeline operators will take affirmative action to protect the safety of their own pipelines.
That's all I have.
And doing the homework on this, the last sheet I just passed out to you shows the accidents that's happened nationwide over the last 10 years. And I think it's important to note that I found out a couple of those fatality accidents in Leavenworth County over the last 10 years were due to exposed high-pressure gas lines.
Yeah.
Kansas Corporation Commission, they don't oversee this.
They have jurisdiction over the purveyors of this, generally with respect to setting rates and franchise service areas. Commissioner Culberson had reached out to the Kansas Corporation Commission, but quite frankly did not receive the level of assistance that was deemed acceptable.
They keep saying the regulations say it doesn't have to be reburied.
Okay, and you said earlier 1,400 feet blast range. Is that
quarter mile?
What's that?
Quarter
of a
mile.
mile.
Okay.
Is that 14 or 13 and 30? Yeah.
Yeah. So, is that by an exposed pipe or is that from a buried pipe also?
Any pipe.
Any pipe.
Yeah.
But you can build a house closer than that through the pipeline?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's another.
And I wonder we don't have more problems because when
typically
when a farmer puts on anhydrous, they're knifing that in the ground, and I'd be afraid of hitting that pipeline.
They're supposed to ask for
they're supposed to be marked. I mean, they have markers, and you can see them as you drive down K7. You can actually see a couple of them.
Yeah.
They're marked.
A farmer doesn't have to call dig safe to farm their ground.
No, and they're supposed to be buried.
Commissioners, additional thought to Commissioner Stevens' inquiry, which is entirely appropriate. You're adopting the already existing regulations. The only change would be that you will interpret the provision with regards to the burial of the pipeline to be a continuing obligation. And I'll use perhaps a coarse analogy. To follow the interpretation that's currently being used, it's like, well, you have to bury a body in the cemetery underground. But if it pops to the surface, that's okay. And, that's a coarse analogy, but it's really a public safety issue. These pipelines do explode, and when they do, there's a great danger to the public. And there's a purpose to requiring them to be buried when they're installed. That purpose does not go away if through erosion or other action they suddenly become uncovered.
And that's why I wanted to point out that those accidents in Leavenworth County were above ground exposed lines.
Commissioners,
I agree with you.
One thing I just want to make sure we acknowledge, and that is last week, at the beginning of the week, I reached out to Senator Moran, Senator Marshall, and Representative Turner's office and their staff. And within a matter of days, they had set up the conference call that Mr. Van Paris referenced. But in less than 5 days, I was contacted by the enforcement folks, both at the state and federal level on this. I think that they got things moving.
Yeah, thank you.
In less than a week, in less than 4 days, really, they got things moving, and still moving. Because yesterday afternoon, one of these pipelines that we're referencing is not an interstate line, so it's not regulated by PHMSA. It's regulated locally. That group had reached out to me, and they were sending people out to take a look at it. Now, that might just be some lip service on their part, because the pictures, our emergency management director, Chuck McGaha, went out and took some pictures of these lines. They're exposed, like there's 3 or 4 feet of clearance underneath that pipe. It's been exposed for
a
over
while,
15
right?
years. So, will they actually go out and cover it, or were they just going to go out and look at it to placate the KCC reaching out to them? I don't know, but it's more action than we've gotten before. And at the federal level, I really do think that there's a very high likelihood that they will change their federal levels to require it to be recovered in a timely basis. So I think it's just bringing the attention to the right people.
Right.
And again, just kudos to the staff of our federal representatives for getting on this and getting action done in less than 4 days in Washington, D.C. is fairly impressive.
Yep, and kudos to you for making those inquiries.
Yep.
Okay, have a motion and second. Begin voting with.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're very welcome.
Good work on that, Jeff.
Okay, let's kind of do our public comment. We have 2 individuals who have requested public comment. Eric McMillan.
McMillan, Easton Township. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the hard work that you guys do as Board of County Commissioners. Today's meeting, I think, was an example of that. Recently, I started to look at the video from last week's BOCC meeting, and I heard all the commissioners, I think it was everybody, make a commitment to holding tight on facts and honesty based on the discussion. I'll put it on veterans' disability benefits or exemptions from taxes. And I saw a letter, and I think I agree with the position that the board is taking on that. I think the best quote, though, that I got out of it was talking about a wise grandma who said that lying is just as bad as stealing. That's kind of a one that you can take with you. I would suggest, though, that along with honesty, the twin sister of honesty is transparency. And there's a lot of passion going on. I think 4 of the commissioners were at the meeting where Senator Tyson spoke, along with County Administrator Lothry, this Monday. And there's a lot of passion on property taxes this year, a lot of concern about it. I would suggest, recommend, encourage that increased transparency is a way of keeping that passion and concern from changing into anger. I think the means of doing this, where we're at right now in the budget and taxation cycle, property tax cycle for this year, would be to publish the detailed proposed county budget that each of you receive, if it's like in the past, in a big 3-inch binder that lists all the department proposed budgets, detailed line by line by line. That really gives you a glimpse into what tax money will be spent on, as well as their narratives, which I think is a very important reference to why these requests are being made, line by line. This, I believe, could be done, making this detailed proposed budget information and narratives available to the public at very low cost, if any cost at all. Just hang it on the county website. We already do the adopted budget, and I think we do proposed budget, but the level of detail of what's on the website traditionally is not useful to citizens. It just talks salaries, commodities, contractual, capital outlays. You really can't, tell what the money's going for on that. And I think it's important in this process that we, as citizens, and you as a commission, understand if the priorities or the budgeting priorities of the public at large mirrors what the budgeting priorities are as we go forward and develop the county budget. I think also, along with the binder, I would recommend that as part of transparency, the commission hold at least one town hall interactive meeting with the public on the budget well in advance of the revenue neutral hearing, a time when the commission and the tax-paying public could have an exchange on what's on the budget and budget priorities. And I think probably the most important outcome on this would be informing and engage citizens so that they can engage in a way that's more light than heat. Much of the discussion on taxation, when it comes down to it, becomes very passionate. My taxes are too high. What are you doing about it? Rather than kind of informed, engaged discussion between the citizens and the commission when tax time comes around. And I would ask, can't we all just agree that an informed, engaged citizenship, an informed, engaged taxpayer body is really key to good government to going forward, so that we have kind of a friends and neighbors approach to taxation, particularly in these times we have with a lot of inflation and people are feeling the squeeze. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, and now we have John Callahan. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
Oh, cool.
You did. But I answered anything. John Callahan, Tonganoxie Township. I just had a couple of comments regarding the George Road issue. I live on McLouth Road, a tenth of a mile from the west end of George Road. So once the traffic barriers went up, traffic dramatically decreased. I know there is no traffic count been done yet, but just I can hear them go by. Semi-traffic is almost nothing. There are a lot of box trucks still going up and down the road, probably 4 or 5 an hour. Package trucks, lumber trucks, concrete trucks, trash trucks. A lot of them are driving through. The auto count, I can't say what that is, but it is down dramatically. Motorcycles are down by hundreds, if not thousands. That's the motorcycle traffic on K16. The speed limit signs, I did not recall them being there before. I guess they were just recently put there at 30 miles an hour. As Lieutenant said, that road is not completely travelable, probably at 30 miles an hour. 20 or 25 would probably be more appropriate for the length of the road. Not a traffic engineer, but just using common sense, which obviously many people traveling that road are not utilizing. I am opposed to closing the road through traffic. I believe there are enforcement measures that could be easily put in place that would handle the issue. I've been in public safety for over 30 years. I've run a lot of wrecks on that road. They're all on that hill because people are going too fast. Probably 30 rollovers in 30 years that I'm aware of. But I believe enforcement would be a far wiser issue than closing the road. If enforcement doesn't work, then maybe that's an option. But I think closing the road is far too drastic based on the decrease in traffic that I've seen. That's all I have.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sure, go ahead. Need your name.
Curtis Road, 211 East 2nd Street. As a lifetime resident of Tonganoxie, and I know pretty much all you guys and so forth, that the George Road fiasco was completely crazy. My phone's been blowing up like you won't believe. I've called Doug, I've called Jeff, I've reached out to a couple of you to come to a solution of what we can do. I've been trying to kind of get people to slow down a little bit on the Facebook pages and kind of educate them a little bit of, hey, we got to be a little more appropriate of how we handle things and so forth. I think there's been a miscommunication between the state and the county, which I think that needs to be resolved. There's a couple things that I would recommend to the county shop bill, that I would probably take the extend-a-boom brush cutter, cut it back as far as you possibly could so you can see the sight distance. Also, I would probably take the electric radar detector that they sit on the side of the road, put it out there. People think that they're taking a picture. It might slow them down. That would be a big thing. But the biggest thing is just enforcement and make sure there is a presence. I do know that Missy at the Hilltop, she is pretty perturbed about the Sheriff's Department detouring her business, which I think they got that resolved, but the Hilltop is open. So, this is a big blow to her for her business. There's a lot of bikes that really don't want to go that direction. They are putting an access road for her so they can use her business and eat and drink and, enjoy their time. So I want to make sure that you guys know that the Hilltop is still open and there is permission, and King's Construction is verifying that access is open to the Hilltop. So other than that, I think there needs to be more communication to the community on the county side and even the state side, because a lot of this, we're all in limbo, sitting here thinking, where do we go? What do we do? How can we present this to the community? Because the community want to know. They want to know what's going on. And I'm trying to give them as much correct information as I possibly can, and that's why I reached out to Doug and Jeff. And I can't get a hold of Mike sometimes, so he's on a train, so I'm just trying to be a relay. So anyway, if you got any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer them, but I just want to make sure that people get the correct information.
Thank you.
I think the idea that Curtis had about the speed limit sign, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that little, I was going to ask about that.
That's a great idea, Curtis.
It tells people and it flashes if you're going too fast.
Yeah.
Our traffic counters can record that.
Yeah.
Our traffic counters are radar counters.
Well, the one.
But right, that they have out on, that you have, like on 20th Street, they have them a lot of times. Yeah, I think that would help.
Yeah, your speed trailer. Oh, dear.
But maybe we can borrow one from, or lease one from somebody, just as a.
Anyway.
Something to talk about. Okay.
It's a good idea. Thanks, Curtis.
All right, now, yes, sir. Yes, please, come up.
Kind of that question as to traffic. Now, this was from a Saturday, but I wanted to make sure I could find this email before like I said, talked out of turn. So I had an email from two of my deputies that were out there Saturday morning, and they worked 3 30-minute radar rotations, and the results that I had were 131 cars in 90 minutes on George Road. 93 cars were at or below 30. 30 cars were at 35 to 30. 7 cars were between 39 and 35, and 1 car was at 42. So I don't know if that all
was that 39 between 39 and what did you say? 42.
Right. There was 1 car, singular car of 39. That car was at 42. I'd be happy to forward you guys this email.
Yeah.
Please, thank you.
Is there a specific email address I can get it to all of you?
The BOCC.
Just BOCC at Leavenworth County.
LeavenworthCounty.gov.
Okay. I think until your presence out there is doing a lot, though. Just being visible.
Okay. I know sometimes people, I don't know if 30 is reasonable or not, but a lot of people would say that a car is speeding if they saw it and it was going 30. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when people say all these cars are speeding, well, a lot of times what we find are results like this when we go out and actually put a radar on them. They may be driving fast for the conditions of the road, but it may be within the speed limit that's posted. So.
Okay. Part of this is talking about it. Right. Because getting it on the record, having Curtis over here saying things, getting the word out, just drive responsibly on George Road. Slow down.
And if you don't, we're going to give you a ticket.
On every road.
Well, I know, but we're talking about George Road. I agree.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks for coming up.
And for looking up that information for us. Thank you. Okay, so let's start with Doug. Do you have anything to report? Other than our thing on Monday?
Second Wednesday. It'll be next week for you.
Yep. Same here.
Well, we went to the town hall, so I thought we.
Oh yeah, we went to town hall.
I thought we communicated our position really well as far as unfunded mandate. Mm-hmm. That's the basic. We're for helping the veterans, but
I'm glad you passed out that handout to every table.
Juneteenth coming up. I'm going to have a table there.
That's what I heard. I talked
so if anybody
night,
wants to put literature out or anything, but we could do it as a. I mean, we could. I don't know how that works, but
Juneteenth is. I was going to announce that. Yeah. And so we probably need to make sure that's on the agenda. So just that we will be maybe not all at the same time, but it kind of falls within a window of time.
Is in the evening.
And the parade's in the evening. Everything is in the evening. There's also,
thank goodness,
just to kind of piggyback on that, if you don't mind, is that there will also on that afternoon during the day, there's going to be a video that's going to be being presented. I think it's at the Richard Allen Cultural Center. It may be the AME Church, but it's on the Buffalo Soldiers, kind of a documentary that has been done, and I think that would be really neat for the public to watch. And then the night before, that evening before, is going to be the dedication of the placard for the lynching thing. That's going to be that'll be Friday 16th. Evening
at the Richard
Allen Cultural Center. So the commissioners might be interested in attending that as well, potentially,
they ought
and
to
the
get that
public
on the agenda.
as well. So those are two things that we might want to have on our agenda that are going to be happening, and then I'll speak to the other thing that's going to be happening.
Tomorrow I'm speaking at the Tonganoxie Historical Society children's kids camp. They have a kids camp, and they're going to be talking about history of railroads and the history of railroading in Kansas. I don't know if you knew that Cyrus Holliday was the first president of the Santa Fe Railroad, and he donated the 20 acres that the state capitol sits on in Topeka. So that's just one little fun fact.
Yeah.
So I have the opportunity to do that tomorrow.
Oh, cool. Go ahead. Jeffrey, do you have anything?
Nope, not this week. Didn't have city meeting last night other than the town hall. That's all I got.
Just had the dedication last Saturday. VFW had a really, really good turnout, and a lot of those pavers are intended to be placed in there, which is really very good to see. It's just a nice place to come visit. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
And then just as an FYI for the public also to know is that the same night as the Juneteenth celebration will be the Leavenworth Historical Society fundraiser that will be at the Riverfront Community Center. And the week before that, which will be a week from this Saturday, is the Sleep Out that is recognizing or increasing awareness of home population and then working toward housing people in permanent housing who live in Leavenworth County. It's through the DePaul Foundation. And so I think that Commissioner Smith and I have discussed that we were going to do a joint donation, and if anybody else wants to kick in as a county commissioner, just get with me and we'll get that done. I know that Commissioner Smith and I are going to do a sponsorship just to have as the county commission, because we need to increase, and the purpose of this organization that is going to be doing the Sleep Out is to find and rehab or purchase permanent housing, and then to have places for people who are unhoused have an opportunity to have a permanent home. So it's a worthy cause.
Yep, we're going to the dump this afternoon.
Oh, I thought you were doing that last week.
Well, it got
rained out.
Oh, it rained. That's right.
Yeah,
okay.
it rained out, so we're going to go tour the dump.
That would have been a good time to go. You would have got the
Get all muddy.
Exactly.
Well,
Worst case scenario.
That's what I thought too, Doug.
Yeah, we have nothing
Well, today's
else.
not going to be any better. It's going to be 92.
Yeah, that's going to be hot.
Chris Kobach is coming on the 15th to Baser, the
Oh, okay.
Elephant Club, to speak.
Motion to adjourn.
And then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Begin with
Aye.
aye.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we are adjourned.